to do. We're going to sign two more bills today, one that affirms the right to record police and one that has the Department of Health studying the health impacts of the COVID virus on minorities. There's been tremendous disparity, as we know, across the nation. Not as bad in New York, but we don't want to have any disparity in New York. And we have some zip codes that have twice the infection rate in New York City. But the New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative is a game changer and is going to be a national model because it is a fundamental transformational change for every community in this state. Every community in this state gets to redesign its police department. Every community in this state gets to determine what is the appropriate public safety function in 2020. Every community in this state gets to have heard the protests, heard the demonstrations, seen the outrage last night in Atlanta again, and now redesign their police department in their community. Just think about it. The policing doesn't work, and it doesn't, because as soon as you lose respect and trust between the police and the community, it's not working, and it's not going to work, because it's a relationship, and it's about trust and respect. And once you don't have trust and respect, it doesn't work. Okay, reform it. What do you want to see? And get it done in 9 months. Now it gets real. I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. I want this, I want this, I want this. Okay, now it's real. Tell me specifically what you want from your police department. Buffalo, Rochester, tell me exactly what you want your police department to do. Not abstract, not conceptual. Write it down on a piece of paper. Come to a table, the mayor, the council, the activists, the protesters, the public safety experts, the police department, and redesign it so the relationship is one of trust and respect. The police are a function of what the community wants. We've heard loud and clear the community wants a different type of police force. Great. Now do it. Well, where do we start? You start with a blank piece of paper and redesign your police department. Well, why don't we do it statewide? There is no such thing as a statewide police department. That's the state police. But every community has its own police department, its own wants, its own needs. Albany will want a different kind of police department than New York City. Will want a different type of police department than Erie County. Different communities have different needs. They have different opinions. They have different ideas. Fine. Make the police department work for you. But do it. Do it. I want change, I want change, I want change. Great. Write the bill. That's what I say to my friends in Albany, right? I want change. Good. Write the piece of legislation. Tell me what you want changed. Now, every community, come to the table, blank piece of paper, redesign your police department. Do it in collaboration. All the stakeholders are at the table. You have 9 months to do it. 9 months is too long. No, it's not. You can make a baby in 9 months. If you can make a baby in 9 months, you can redesign a police department. 9 months is too short. No, it's not. This is going to be a long conversation. There's going to be a lot of issues to work through. So 9 months, I think, is an appropriate time. But it now requires real leadership. Not just criticism. Not just suggestions. You need a real leader or a number of people to lead and actually make this happen. Well, I want to say what we don't want. Fine, you come to the meeting and say what you don't want. But you need leadership in the local community, and you need a real vision that is going to start to redesign the police force. Every community needs a real plan, right? Answer the questions. What do you want in terms of a use of force policy? What works for you, Albany? What do you want in terms of a budget? Well, I think it should be less. Okay, how much less? What's the right number? Well, $1 billion less. $1 billion less from what? Right? Now it gets real. If we have too many police. Okay, how many police should we have? What's the right number? Well, I want to demilitarize the police. Great. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? No guns, assault weapons, tanks, armored cars? What do you mean? Write it down. Well, bias in the police force is a problem. Yep. How do you want to address it? Just tell us. Diversity of the workforce. Yes. How do you want to address it? We need a better complaint process. We should have a faster disciplinary process. We should have more transparency. Great. Design it. Design it. We should have civilian review of the police department complaints. Great. Yes. How do you want to make it work? Government is hard because government, you need to be specific and you need to effectuate change. That's the art form of government. That's the art form of protest and of demonstration. All the great activists also knew what they wanted. You need to know the change you want. There is no change for the sake of change. You have to change to something. What do you want to change to? So, lead the process community by community. The mayor is a natural leader for this effort. I believe in the city of Buffalo, a person like Mayor Brown, who already started, will come to the table. He'll be a leader. If the mayor doesn't want to do it or can't do it, city council president can do it. City council member in charge of public safety can do it, right? New York City, Mayor de Blasio could do it. He doesn't want to do it. Corey Johnson, city council president, could do it. Donovan Richards, public safety councilman. But somebody has to be a leader now and come to the table and start to redesign because the clock is ticking. Time is wasting. April 1, plan has to be passed by April 1. Why passed? Because it has to be law. Not just wish list, not just here, this is what we're thinking about, here's what we're considering. Government is very good about doing a report that sits on a shelf for 150 years. Come up with your plan, pass it, make it law, so people know exactly what we have. 9 months, tick, 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 tick. You hear that sound? That's the 9 months ticking. Step up to the plate. Who's going to lead? Bring everyone else to the table, and let's get to work, and let's show that Mr. Floyd did not die in vain. Eric Garner did not die in vain. Abner Louima did not die in vain. Breonna Taylor did not die in vain. Change came, and change was institutionalized. That is the art form, and now is the time to do it, and we're going to do it in this state first. No other state is talking about doing this. Why? Because this is hard. It's always easy to say what you can't do, what you don't want to do. It's always easy to argue in vague concepts. I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. Hard is, okay, let's redesign, let's reform, and this is what we're going to do going forward. defund the police. Okay, what does that mean? How do we do that? Community by community by community. There's no right or wrong. I'm not going to tell anyone what they should do. They should do what they want to do. They should design a police force that works for them. It's the only people it has to work for, is for them. You have federal laws and state laws that have minimum standards on police, but then it's up to the local community. Do it. And let New York be the state that made the most progress by making statewide change community by community. Hearing the dialogue, hearing the protests, seeing on video the obvious injustice over and over and over again, and then fixing it. Fixing it. That's who we are. We're New York tough, smart, united, disciplined. Questions?
Governor Cuomo, have you since Thursday talked or thought about over the weekend in the time from your guidance with nursing homes and visitations to group homes and adult care facilities? People are still asking if there's a better time frame or a better timeline on when they can visit their loved ones.
Yeah, Department of Health is doing a study as we speak. They're going through it. They're talking to nursing home operators, a number of infectious disease doctors, and we're going to have an answer this week. Jesse? Yeah.
On the issue of this warning to Manhattan and the Hamptons, are you suggesting that those areas, Long Island and New York City, could be taken back a step?
Highest number of complaints, 25,000 statewide. Highest number, Manhattan and the Hamptons. If the local governments, if we have a high number of violations of the policy, which is tantamount to a high likelihood of the spread of the virus, and the local governments are not monitoring, policing, doing the compliance, yes, there is a very real possibility that we would roll back the reopening in those areas. The only alternative would be to pause the entire reopening.
You've spoken again and again about facts and data and stuff like that. Would you wait for that spike to be seen, or would that be a unilateral decision on your part?
We're watching for it now. But any doctor will tell you, any infectious disease doctor will tell you, look at the behavior and you know what is going to happen. This is not rocket science on this extent. If you have large gatherings of people who are not socially distanced, who are not wearing masks, you will have an increased spread in the virus. It may not come for a period of time, but it will come. And once it comes, it's too late. Now you're back up in a spike situation, and it's going to take you weeks of extraordinary effort to bring it down. Better than letting the spike happen is stop the spread. That's what Utah is doing. That's what Oregon is doing. Before you go to a statewide repause, or even a regional repause, if there was such a term, better you do a local specific where that is creating the problem. But if you just allow the violations to continue and nobody does anything, you know what's going to happen. Same thing has happened in 22 states.
The county executive already went on the record stating that people can open as they please, and he obviously gave a little hesitation to those with state liquor licenses and other state licenses because they can obviously be pulled by you guys. But Steve McLaughlin has already encouraged people to open because, you know, he's ready to go. Have you had conversations with him specifically?
Everybody knows what the law is. And also look, you get all sorts of people who say all sorts of things, right? But they're not legally binding. You know, somebody tells you you can drive 110 miles an hour today. Go drive 110 miles an hour. And when the trooper pulls you over, say, Joe Kitsabotsuna told me I can drive 110 miles an hour. They'll say, that's very nice. Tell Joe I said hello. Here's the ticket.
Governor, just to drill down on this just for a second, just to be absolutely clear. So you're saying that Long Island and New York City's
I said
reopening...
warning warning, enforce the law.
Or the,
Warning, enforce the law. You have large gatherings that are in violation of the law. This will most probably lead to a spread of the virus. Do your job and enforce the law. If you do not, and this continues, we would have no choice but to take state action ceasing the behavior.
Please comment on, there's this plan to rethink police and how local police departments operate. Do you think those conversations and that plan brought forward should also extend to how DA offices operate their operations? Such as, do we need to also be thinking how to rethink district attorney offices, how they release Brady material to the public?
Look, they could do that, but that's not a function of city law, right? The reason I say community by community is it is their law that determines their police. New York City can redesign the NYPD. New York City cannot redesign the district attorney's offices, right? That's state law. New York City cannot define judges. That's state law, right? Goes federal, state, city. So the city can do what's in the city jurisdiction. Policing, there are state laws, federal laws, but the specifics are left to the police vis-a-vis that city, because that city designs its police force. New York City determines that they have 36,000 police officers. New York City determines the staffing, the functions, the pay. That's all done by New York City. What we've all decided, what society has said, frankly, from my point of view, long overdue, this police model does not work. It doesn't work. And they've said that clearly, and the way they have said it, ipso facto made it true. Because when the community comes out and says, I don't trust the police, you know what? Stop everything, because if there's no trust, there's no relationship, it doesn't work, right? Husband and wife, I don't trust the other person. That has to be fixed, because it doesn't work without that. The police can't police a community that doesn't trust them and doesn't respect them. It won't work, and vice versa, by the way. So New York City, redesign your police department. You have 9 months. All these questions that have been raised, great. Now come to the table and answer them.
Should that also be applied, that same scrutiny to local district attorneys that often have some of those same problems as far as transparency?
Let's do one thing at a time before we bite off the whole loaf. Start with the police. That has been the issue. That's what the demonstrations are about. Let's address that. You want to get into DAs, you want to get into judges, that's a bigger issue, and that's a statewide issue. Meaning it's a function of state law. Let's start with what people are demanding change. People are demanding change for the police, with the police, the way we police, and let's attend that, and then we can take on other things.
On the topic of gatherings, New York's limit, I still believe, is 10 gatherings, no more than 10. New Jersey relaxed that recently to 50 people indoors, 100 people outdoors. At what point do you consider relaxing New York's gathering limit?
What's my answer going to be?
I don't know what your answer is going to be, but
All right, as long as we understand each other. We're going to follow the numbers. We're doing great right now on the transmission rate. And whenever we can increase something, I do, right? We increased last week. We're watching the transmission rate, and we're watching those numbers. And you make little changes where if you're wrong, you're not going to increase the transmission rate in a way you can't fix. So Little League sports, 2 spectators. Okay, we can do that. Summer day camps, we can do that. But you make a dramatic change quickly, like those gatherings, That is a big change. You know, you can say, oh, it's only 10 to 25. Yeah, it's 10 to 25 times 50,000, right? Because that would go all across the board. That's a lot of people. And those mass gatherings, that's the vital area of vulnerability. That was New Rochelle. Don't forget what we learned. New Rochelle, first hotspot in the United States, first cluster, one guy goes to a religious ceremony. One guy. We have the number one cluster. It is fire through dry grass in that situation. So you're going right to one of the seminal questions, you know. Everything we do is trying to open the economic activity, reducing the density in the gatherings. You're going right to the heart of the beast there.
Just to play this out a little bit, what is the difference between, say, a high school graduation and a piece of protest where you might have thousands of people in close proximity with masks versus, say, a high school graduation?
First of all, we don't know. Well, we don't know what happened at the protests. We're still waiting to find out. Now, the only good news, and you have a lot of people studying these protests all across the nation, the good news about the protests, they happened when our infection rate was way down, right? We had a less than 1% infection rate when the protests happened. If those protests had happened when our infection rate was higher, forget it. Forget it. You'd see it today in the numbers. The only saving grace was, by the time they happened, the infection rate was just about as low as it is now, right? It's been at this number for the past few weeks. So that's the only good news, that it may have happened when the infection rate was down, and that's why it didn't spread as much. But we don't know what the protests will have done. We're still waiting to see if it makes a difference.
Governor Hunter, actually, Dan, go ahead.
Dan?
The president approved a major rail project in New Jersey over the weekend after having dinner with Bill Murphy. What do you think it will take to get him to approve some of New York's projects like the Gateway Tunnel, congestion pricing?
Look, I think it's great that the president, that project that he approved in New Jersey is part of the Gateway Tunnel project. It's a thoroughfare that leads to the Gateway Tunnel, and it's great that you fix that bridge, that portal. But if you don't do the Gateway Tunnel, you know, this is just a bridge to nowhere without the Gateway Tunnel. If you don't fix the tunnel, then where do you think you're going? To a tunnel that'll bring you to the bottom of the Hudson River, right? Who wants to take that bridge, right? You go over the bridge, and then you just fall. Except you don't even have to fall because you're in a tunnel that is collapsing. Now, there's one thing about a president who doesn't advance infrastructure. This is a president who, when he was running, promised a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure program. What have we seen? Right? That's one thing. He didn't build, he didn't advance. I can't think of a president who has been more irresponsible in allowing dangerous situations to continue. That cross Harbor Tunnel, the Cross Hudson Tunnel, Amtrak, which is a federally owned agency, the president owns Amtrak, right? Everybody's looking for politics. He owns Amtrak. He owns it. Amtrak says the tunnels are collapsing. Amtrak, that he owns. Amtrak says they need 2 new tunnels and fixing the 2 old tunnels to deal with the thoroughfare to the entire Northeast, not just New York. If it was just New York, I'm sure he wouldn't care because we're a blue state. But It's called the Northeast United States. Amtrak says that, not me. The company he owns, Amtrak, says the tunnels have to be fixed. Not to fix those tunnels that you know are dangerous, that's just reckless. It's reckless. A lot of presidents didn't show the leadership to build new, but not to fix what is a dangerous situation, as told to you by Amtrak, which you own, that's reckless in a way I can't even describe.
And do you have any updates on the state budget? Are cuts coming?
We're still waiting to see what happens on the federal budget.
There's a local bike organization that says that the bike path on the Mario Cuomo Bridge is going to be opening tomorrow. Is that accurate? And if so, do you plan on being there for the ribbon cutting?
We'll have to see tomorrow.
It's your father's birthday tomorrow.
It is.
Is there a ribbon cutting tomorrow on the bike path?
I have to see tomorrow. But if I were you,
Why is it a
I
secret?
would get on my bike and start riding now, south.
Families on expectations for the fall for schools, universities, colleges, people are chomping at the bit, and they're worried about bills and things like that, like, am I staying over at the school, am I going to be distance learning?
Yeah, we don't know yet. Nobody can tell you yet. Nobody can tell you what the fall looks like. They can give you guesses, maybe this, maybe that. But any determination anybody would make today would be subject to change depending on what happens with the virus between now and then, right? Nobody's going to say, I'm going to open the schools, no matter what the facts, no matter how bad the virus spread. 22 states are seeing an uptick already. We might have an uptick. Whatever happens, I'm going to open the schools. Nobody would say that. I'm going to go to work, guys. Thank you.